Welcome back to Legal Verdict Daily. Today on our True Off My Chest, a terrifying night in the emergency room turns into a public humiliation. Let's inspect the evidence. Last night was one of the worst nights of my life. I woke up around 4 in the morning, gasping for air. My throat felt like it was closing every time I coughed. I could not catch my breath. I had a horrible headache. And I was so nauseous I was trying to throw up. The audacity of this person. Gasping for air. Throat closing at 4 in the morning. This sounds like an extreme medical emergency. Not just a rough night, and this is only the beginning of a total nightmare. I have lupus, asthma, and severe sleep apnea. So when I get sick, it usually hits me much harder than most people. My dad rushed me to the emergency room because I genuinely could not breathe. Wow. With all those pre-existing conditions, you know that when she says she cannot breathe, she means it. That must have been absolutely terrifying for her and her father. My heart goes out to them. The first triage nurse was so kind. Then I got to the second nurse. I stayed calm and polite while explaining what happened. But I felt like she did not believe me. She looked at my oxygen level and basically brushed it off, saying it was probably just sleep apnea anxiety, even though I kept explaining that I had been getting sicker for days and have been hospitalized before because of how lupus affects me. Good luck with that. Because the logical medical conclusion when someone with lupus is gasping for air is that they are just anxious about their sleep apnea. Classic medical dismissal. Did she even listen to a single word the original poster said about her previous hospitalizations? Tell me in the comments if a nurse has ever completely dismissed you like this. She brought me to a bed right behind triage to do an ECG. She gave me a mask, even though I was struggling to breathe. Then told me to lift my shirt. I pulled it up enough to keep myself covered, because I was not wearing a bra. Wait, are you actually kidding me right now? What, she gave her a mask while she was struggling to breathe? That makes zero sense. And then to tell her to lift her shirt without any clear explanation. The audacity is astounding. This is escalating way too fast. She pulled my shirt completely above my breasts without saying anything and left me exposed while putting on the ECG stickers. What completely broke me was realizing the curtain behind me was open the entire time. People walking into the emergency department could see me. Oh, no, that is just heartbreaking. To be in such a vulnerable state, both medically and physically. And then to have your privacy completely obliterated like that in front of total strangers. I can only imagine the shame and absolute terror she was feeling. I made eye contact with multiple strangers while my breasts were exposed. I wanted to disappear. I finally pulled my shirt down a little to cover myself because I could not take it anymore. After the ECG, she told me to go back to the waiting room. Oh boy, here we go again. So after the grand unveiling and the full public viewing of her medical situation, the official treatment was to go back to the waiting room. Brilliant, a true masterclass in patient care. I am sure the walk of shame back past those same onlookers was just fantastic for her oxygen levels. I walked past the same people who had just seen me exposed the second I sat beside my dad. I completely broke down crying. I was so embarrassed that I could barely tell him what had happened. I ended up leaving the hospital without treatment because I could not stand the thought of seeing that nurse again. That is unbelievable. She was so traumatized and humiliated that she fled without getting the medical care she desperately needed. A critical breathing issue, and she left because of a nurse's egregious lack of professionalism. This is not just bad service. This is dangerous medical neglect fueled by sheer carelessness. What kind of hospital allows this? And how could any nurse think that was okay? I have been to the hospital so many times over the last few years, and I have never experienced anything like that. Every other nurse has always done their best to protect my privacy. I have barely slept because I am terrified of waking up unable to breathe again. But I am also terrified of going back to that hospital. That is rough. It is completely understandable that she is terrified and replaying it. This is not just about a bad doctor's visit. It is about a profound violation of trust and dignity at a moment of life. Or death vulnerability. That kind of experience leaves deep emotional scars. I honestly do not know if I am overreacting or not. I just know I have never felt so humiliated in my life. And I cannot stop replaying it in my head. What an absolute clown. Because wanting your shirt on in front of a crowded waiting room while gasping for air is overreacting. The fact that this poor woman is questioning her own reality shows just how badly this nurse gaslit her. She was so mortified and afraid to face the same nurse again that she fled the emergency room without treatment for her breathing distress. But the story does not end with her humiliation. It spirals into whether she will ever get the care she needs after such a violation, and what kind of severe professional consequences this hospital is now facing. The Reddit community is overwhelmingly siding with the original poster, and rightly so. The consensus across hundreds of top comments is clear. This nurse's actions were a severe breach of patient privacy, professional ethics, and human dignity. Many users are calling it outright neglect, emphasizing that forcing a patient with respiratory distress into extreme emotional humiliation directly compromised her medical outcome. There is a massive push for immediate legal and administrative action. Commenters are urging the original poster to file a formal complaint with the hospital patient advocate, the state licensing board, and the risk management department. The general advice is to document every detail immediately, including times, descriptions of staff, and the physical setup of the triage room, so the hospital cannot sweep this under the rug. Healthcare workers within the Reddit community also joined the discussion to express outrage. Multiple registered nurses pointed out that leaving a curtain wide open during a chest examination violates basic clinical procedures taught on day one of nursing school. They reassured the original poster that requesting a supervisor or a different nurse is a patient right, and that she was in no way overreacting to this unacceptable failure of care. Other commenters highlighted the severe medical risk involved in this situation because the original poster suffers from lupus and asthma. Leaving the hospital untreated could have led to a fatal drop in oxygen levels overnight. The community heavily emphasized that avoiding medical care out of trauma is a known phenomenon, and that the hospital carries direct moral and civil liability for driving a critical patient away. The core legal principle at play in this case involves the fundamental standard of care and patient privacy mandates. Medical facilities and their personnel operate under strict legal duties to maintain bodily privacy during medical procedures under health privacy laws like HIPAA in the United States. Alongside common law privacy protections, exposing a patient's unclothed body to unauthorized members of the public inside a hospital setting is a direct violation of patient rights. From a tort law perspective, the nurse's conduct opens the hospital to potential liability for intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress. To prove this, a plaintiff must demonstrate that the provider's conduct was extreme and outrageous, leading to severe emotional trauma. The fact that the original poster was forced to flee the emergency room while suffering an active breathing emergency provides strong evidence of tangible harm caused directly by the nurse's negligence. In terms of professional liability and medical malpractice, medical staff must adhere to accepted medical protocols. Failing to draw privacy curtains during a physical examination, ignoring complaints of breathing distress, and dismissing a immunocompromised patient's symptoms as mere anxiety can be categorized as a failure to meet the standard of care. If the original poster suffered worsening physical injuries due to delayed treatment, the damages could be substantial. The original poster has several distinct legal administrative remedies available. She can lodge a formal complaint with the state nursing board, triggering an independent investigation into the nurse's license, additionally reporting the incident to the Joint Commission, which accredits healthcare organizations, can result in institutional audits, policy mandatory retraining, and structural changes to ensure emergency room, curtains, and examination areas guarantee absolute privacy. This nurse receives a verdict of 5 out of 5 MI the holes. She exhibited a total disregard for patient dignity and physical privacy. Compounded by a dangerous dismissal of a serious medical condition, the original poster was completely justified in her outrage. The nurse failed her most fundamental legal and professional duty to care for a vulnerable patient with basic human respect, creating a dangerous situation where a sick patient fled without receiving critical medical care. Always advocate for your rights, because medical dignity is a non-negotiable right. That wraps up today's case on Legal Verdict Daily, where a terrifying emergency room visit turned into a deeply humiliating breach of patient rights. What would you have done in the original poster's shoes after such a violation? Have you ever had to deal with a dismissive medical worker? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next episode for another deep dive into legal justice.